Welcome to On the Couch, a regular catch-up where we discuss the issues facing media, marketing and advertising and hopefully provide some solutions. Today on the couch I'm joined by John Boyle, who's a director of Mojologic. Welcome to the couch, John.
Hello, Darren.
John, leadership is a big issue. Why is leadership such a big topic for business?
Well, it's such a big issue because it's all-encompassing, all-demanding. And yet, as even the word leader, the language around leadership, that's a term that we don't necessarily use in everyday life.
That's true. You'd be a bit pompous, wouldn't you?
Yeah, look, you would. It's something that we bestow upon leaders who are military leaders, people who are political leaders. And yet, in the boardroom since the 1970s, what we've managed to do is to blend that into our corporate speak. HR divisions have managed to grow that. And the whole language of leadership is something that exists not exclusively in the corporate world, but that's why there's a minefield for us. So, for example, if I was to introduce myself as your leader, you'd think, well, that's a bit pompous, and people around you might think the same. If somebody's asking a question, if you heard somebody in the corridor saying, oh, look, why don't we see what our leader thinks? There's an element of cynicism there. So,
absolutely.
So there's a challenge along the way.
So, John, do you think some of this is because leadership is particularly needed at a time of massive change, and we're going through massive change? I mean, what is the role of leadership when you're facing change?
The role of leadership is to drive that change, and it is the leader's responsibility to make that happen. And they're told that that's the case. But if you look at any classic change theorists, John Cotter comes to mind. I'm sure he's still popular, but he was the one that was the most quoted when I was doing my studies. Something like about 79% of change programs fail to meet their goals. And when we look at that, it's rarely because of technical challenges. It's usually around those soft skills, which are really hard to deliver. And maybe we're going a bit further too deeper into change, but one of the biggest challenges you have with change is that how do you create a sense of urgency? And that's Cotter's number one. I won't quote all 8 of them. So creating a sense of urgency, that's a soft skill. Then you establish a powerful guiding coalition. So how do you establish the most effective people to be with you? So a leader creates a sense of urgency, gets the team around them, and then what they have to do is to create the vision. Where are we going? Where do we go from here? And then the fourth one, that I won't mention anymore, is that vision needs to be communicated. And they're all soft skills.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge with leaders today. We're often highly trained technically. So the challenge of a leader is to drive change through tapping into the soft skills. We weren't even talking about emotional intelligence yet.
So, as you said before, leadership is often conferred in business, or in fact in life. But what makes a great leader, having had leadership conferred on them?
There has been so much research done in that area, and immediately you'd probably get about half of those hits would be what makes a great leader. And what I like to do is maybe start with a core of a theory, and I think of Jim Collins, who went out to research why some organizations outperformed the market by a certain percentage. And what he found universally was that each of the companies that outperformed the market had exceptional leadership. And then he devised the term what he called level 5 leadership, and that level 5 leadership separated the rest. And even great leaders like Jack Welch or whatever great leaders, they only reach level 4.
So marketing is an area which often attracts people with good soft skills, which is part of leadership.
Yes.
What's the role of the marketer in driving marketing change?
Look, I think the role within marketing is the same that any leader faces, and usually it is to drive change. The challenge with change is that most people resist it. With marketing, what you're also dealing with is less systematic processes and more around innovation and more around bleeding edge stuff. So as a result of that, the language of business, so you've got the language of leadership, the language of marketing, so much gets in the way. So the most effective leaders are able to cut through all the advice that they're being given, cut through all the strategic challenges, and focus on what they're there to do. And typically, it's to achieve something with a group of people by a certain time.
So for a marketer watching this, what advice would you give them around leadership if they wanted to move from marketing to, say, leading the organisation as a CEO or managing director?
Keep developing those soft skills, because I think marketers have an advantage because they're using those day to day. They're selling visions, they're selling concepts, they're persuading people, often without authority. And some of the best leaders are able to influence others without formal authority, and that's a whole area there. And develop your technical skills. Now, if you work your way through and you become a CMO, I think you're in a better opportunity now than you've ever been to get into that C-suite across the board, like the CEO job, because you own the data. And that's all powerful. And CIOs and CMOs.
Powerful leverage tool.
Precisely that.
Great advice, John. Thanks for joining us on the couch.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us on the couch. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay tuned for more On the Couch coming very soon.